Okay, hi everyone. I'm Katie Bishop. I'm an energy healer, and I am here today with Miss Ginny Jablonski. And we, um, aside from being friends, we are both energy healers and give spiritual guidance. And during these times we're experiencing collectively, we wanted to get together and have a little conversation that might help navigate this storm and what we're experiencing, and what you can do as an individual to stay grounded and out of fear during these times. So before we start talking, Jenny, do you want to say a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Well, I don't consider myself an energy healer, but I'm an intuitive, like embodiment coach. I work with people at the soul level, at the level of the higher self that exists outside of time. For some people, I think they have higher selves that are inside of time as well. I know that for sure, because I've just worked with thousands and thousands of people. But what's happening right now is I think we really need people to talk about the types of shifts internally and externally that are happening on the individual level, to give people support and to let them know they're not alone, and to give maybe some tools that aren't spoken about widely. We certainly have and are aware of protocols that have been in existence for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years on the planet, whether they be shamanic, oriental medicine, metaphysical, pranic medicine, and that type of thing. But I don't think there are a lot of people out there talking about what do the energetic shifts feel like and look like within our own being. And is that beginning to alter away from the way we used to do things, to shift? And I'll just give you one quick example before we jump in. And I had a client recently, a woman with a PhD, and she was trained in something called Psyche. And I'm not speaking out against Psyche in any way, but in Psyche, they have a specific way of energetically preparing themselves to do the work, and they call it the hookup. And what they move their body in a very specific way. I'm not a teacher of that, so I'm not going to explain it. But when I was talking to the woman and we were holding some intention for her to release energy, I said to her, your energy isn't moving. Do you feel that your energy is moving? What's going on? And she said, I don't feel that anything is happening right now. I feel stagnant. I feel like the energy isn't moving. And I said, well, can you please explain? I was just told very clearly to ask her, what are you doing with your body right now? Can you explain to me what you're doing with your body? Are you sitting? Are you standing? Are you lying down? And she explained to me what she was doing with her legs and her arms and her body, because her process was to do it the Psyche way. And I said, oh, well, this is an issue because your energy isn't working like that anymore. So can you undo what you've done and breathe and come into your heart center and clear your earth star chakra? And then let's see if your energy shifts. And sure enough, it did. So there are ways that we have been taught, and it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's everywhere on the internet. You can buy it for $39 or $99, or you can watch videos for free on the internet. This color means this chakra means this. If this happens, then you feel this way or you believe that way. And I've never found any of those protocols to be true or to be 100% accurate for any human that I've ever worked with ever. And now more than ever, we are shifting and moving into totally new territory. And the only time I've ever heard of this prediction with respect to energy was an old prophecy. And that was, I heard it maybe 20 years ago, and that was, eventually humanity will be rooted in the heart. And together with that, I always add, and we will not be able to hide our trauma or to hide behind anything in the future. And we're in the future right now. This is it. We are front and center individually. We are showing up authentically, and you can't hide. You can't pretend anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you hear my dogs barking. You just hit the nail on the head with a bunch of points, especially from being anchored in the heart space and working from the heart space. Um, One of the things I wanted to touch on was the over complication of spirituality that's going on. Like you said, oh, you have to have this color, or you have to have this process, and oh, it's just gotten out of control. And consciousness, just the concept of consciousness, has become so over intellectualized, and it doesn't need to be, because it's about knowing yourself. You don't need all these fancy processes. The process we need is shadow work. And I'll probably end up coming back to that. But I wanted to go to your comment about the heart space, because that's really what it's all about. Once we are supposed to be, I don't like using the word supposed to be. Our goal is to unveil our soul. It's to unveil the true self. And we do that when we connect to our heart. The problem is, so many people have closed their hearts, and it's really hard to get in there because there's layers and layers of hurt and trauma and pain and being lied to and resentments. And that is difficult to work through. But once we're able to work through that, everything shifts. And that's the shift we're experiencing collectively. And what we are experiencing collectively is going through this band of consciousness. Some people call it the eighth sphere. Some people call it the lower fourth astral plane. But this is where you cannot hide from your trauma, like you were saying, because this is the band where any kind of disincarnate spirit or entity, any kind of entity, there's lots of different kinds. People talk about entity attachment release, which is something that I do. There's not just one kind. We've even got egregores. So this is a very broad band, and being in it means that you cannot hide from your shadow. If you have any kind of insecurities or self-doubt or repressed anger or addiction, that is going to come to the surface, and it's going to come aggressively. Typically, these types of things like to hide because they're very parasitic and they like to be hidden so you don't know they're even there, and then they can harvest and siphon your energy. But because we're in this band of consciousness, they are fighting for their life. And I know you're seeing it in your practice. I'm seeing it in my practice. People coming out and being psychically attacked. I'm getting, I'm falling back to old addictions and old habits and thought patterns, and aggressive attacks are happening. And this is not a time to be fearful of that. It's a time to expose it and know what it is, because once we shine that light of truth on it, it loses all its power. So this is all about bringing the unconscious, conscious, the dark to light. And when we do that internally, it reflects externally. So did you, what else are you seeing right now?
Well, two points that you brought up that I want to respond to. And one is the over intellectualizing of spirituality. I think that perspective gets conflated with self-awareness. And I know that you teach foundational hermetic principles, and one of the foundational hermetic principles is know thyself, right? And how do we begin to know thyself? This is very, I think, fundamentally confusing for people, because I have a lot of clients who are healers or psychics or mediums or famous people. They have big following on YouTube, or they're on certain networks where they get 1,000 people to buy a system, for $200, $300, $400. And they come to me because XYZ is out of balance or what have you. And I'll say, well, what did your soul say about that? Or did you talk to your higher self about that? Or do you have a soul? And they'll say, what do you mean? Or I'll say, you know, can go into your heart space and let's see well, how do you do that? Or I think this is a wounded inner child aspect. Can you call it home? Well, I wouldn't know where to begin with that. And so there are people out there saying basically just walk outside, go for a walk in the trees. Everything is fine. You don't have to understand anything about self-awareness. That's just over intellectualizing. So it's very conflated, right? Just you'll be fine. Just raise your frequency, tuning forks, music, whatever, walk in the woods. But the people that come to me, thousands of people, that doesn't work for them. And frankly, I've never met in my entire life anybody that ever did work for. But the people that come to me say that, teach that, but they don't know how to go into their own subconscious mind and find the programming that is in the subconscious mind and alter it. That's not over intellectualizing. That's understanding how the human psyche actually works energetically and how you can control your reactions, the way you reason, the way you respond to people. If you get triggered, how you can find out why. So I think there's a huge disconnect in people's perspective and what's being floated out there about, you know, just walk in the woods, raise your frequency, and you'll be fine. You don't have to understand any of this. Most of the people I know, our souls came here not to just die and leave the planet. Katie, our soul came here to evolve and to demonstrate what human beings are capable of and to embody our soul so that our DNA does get activated so that can happen. And that rarely happens magically just by chance, in my experience.
No, it
And
did work. Mhm.
and the other thing I wanted to mention is, well, I think I kind of covered it a little bit, and that is that I think people don't understand. They haven't taken a lot of people have not taken foundational instruction on clairvoyance. You know, if you take a class, it's yellow means this, purple means this, blue means this chakra does this chakra, but they're not trained to actually perceive the chakras. They're not trained to actually perceive their own energy. They're not trained to actually communicate with their own soul. So people get very confused. You know, oh,
Mhm.
I was just asking my higher self to fix whatever the problem was. The higher self didn't come here. You came here. You came here. And certainly it gets easier as you go down the road. And certainly the higher self is there for support, but the higher self doesn't magically, you know, come in with a fairy wand and just magically remove every obstacle in our path. I've never met anybody that ever happened for, and I'm not creating that reality. That's for sure. You know,
No,
more people I think are struggling. Pardon me, Katie. More people are struggling than are sort of, you know, experiencing, you know, rainbows and gumdrops and roses. That is not what the vast majority of people are experiencing right now. I'm very glad there are some people who feel that is their experience.
yeah, I think there is obviously a new age deception that teaches people they can just meditate or escape in their spirituality and everything's going to be fine and you don't really have to take any action. Just think positively. And when you live in that state and you're not acknowledging the darkness, you're not acknowledging the reality around you, that's spiritual bypassing and it's escapism. And we need to take action. There needs to be action along with the thoughts and the meditations. So people need to be aware of that. That's not the magic. And the magic does come from the heart space. And when you were talking about clairvoyance, I have so many people come to me and they say, well, I saw this psychic and she told me XYZ. And this person told me this and they're clairvoyant and they're hanging on to making all their decisions based off of that. And they're not connecting with themselves. They can find the answers within. And then here's something that's also very dangerous about that. Our ability to see clairvoyantly through the pineal, through the third eye, is connected to our heart space. And if our heart space isn't open, if it's not clear, if it's not fully connected, then what we're seeing is going to be distorted. So if you're going to a psychic, if you're going to a healer who's seeing things, and there might be some accuracy in there, it's going to be distorted. The way they interpret it, the way they see it, if they're not clear in their heart. And that's why this is so, so very important. Everything you need is already within. It's really about peeling back those layers. And the overcomplication, consciousness and this ascension process is doesn't need to be so complicated. You don't need a PhD in ascension mechanics. This is a process that children do naturally. It's about the true self. And I think what we're going to see is, as we go down this road collectively, the dark night of the soul is going to come out. And that's when people realize they've been wearing this mask. They get up every morning and they don't even know they're doing it. It becomes so routine. They put on their mask. They put on who they need to be socially to be accepted by the herd, by the masses, to keep their job. And this is all programming. It's all conditioning. And when people have that moment where they really, truly look at who their true self is, and then they compare it to the life they've been living and the priorities, it usually doesn't match up. And then they see the mask, they see the false self, they see the ego that had taken control. And it's devastating. That's why it's called the dark night of the soul. But working through that is key. I call the dark night of the soul a catapult, because it pulls you back. You go really, really dark. But then once you break through, you are on the other side and you see the world differently. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now, is a dark night of the soul, especially with a lot of this chaos.
Yeah, as Joseph Campbell talks about it, the metaphoric hero's journey, right? There's a part when you hit the bottom of the cycle where you say, okay, no more, I can't do this anymore. And you get a little bit angry, and that gives you the thrust to shift up into willingness to be wrong, willingness to change, willingness to heal, willingness to wake up tomorrow and perceive the world differently, or what have you. And I think that's a big stumbling block right now, is there's a lack of willingness, but it doesn't just come from us. Our body doesn't trust our soul. So our bodies, for some of us, many of us, is not allowing the soul to come in fully and merge with the nervous system, our soul. I've seen it all. I've seen people's soul just sort of take a hike, and there's a little bit of, left in some people, but they just check out. I've seen them taking a nap on a park bench. I've seen a person's soul say, why would I want to go into that body? That's just temporary. And had to have a conversation with that soul. In New Age metaphysics, everything is just perfect. Your soul and your higher self are just all perfectly 100% aligned with everything that's going on. I'm sorry, that negates our lack of discernment and choices that we've made. And not to mention, 50 other things that are not exactly as we expected them to be on the planet. But discernment and willingness. Discernment comes with healing and opening up the heart and aligning more with the heart and releasing trauma from the nervous system so our soul can come in. And discernment shifts and changes. Perspective shifts and changes. If we're doing the same thing the same way that for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, probably stagnant. They're probably not shifting. Probably there's another perspective available to us that we're not willing to look at. And I know there's a wonderful argument for everybody having their own experience, and there's just a vast amount of perspectives available and belief systems. But as all of the timelines merge into one, a lot of those belief systems are losing their energy. They're losing followers. They're losing people that used to to believe in it. And so we're condensing and condensing and condensing and condensing into a timeline where the true self exists. And where the discernment sometimes is off, or where the thoughts that we're having. You mentioned earlier, we have to watch our thoughts. Well, if you don't understand where thoughts come from, and the thoughts don't even belong to you, you could spend a lot of time in your day blaming yourself for thoughts that you're having that don't even belong to you. They're not even yours. And a little bit of self-awareness goes a long way in that regard. We could clean up our thoughts if well, there are many ways to do it, but one is through meditating on the subconscious, basically, control panel. And you clear up that subconscious that, according to neurologists, manages anywhere from 85 to 95% of everything you say and do and every choice you ever make. Imagine how much more alignment you would be with the divine wisdom of your soul than if you were managed by all of the wounding and belief systems of the subconscious mind, right?
Yeah, it's the subconscious mind is absolutely critical, because we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and typically majority of those are the same thoughts over and over and over. Most people are like stuck on a record, on a loop with these thought patterns, and we really need to be aware that thoughts do create. That's actually the first principle of the Hermetic principles. It's mentalism. So we need to recognize the power that our thoughts have, and that comes from bringing the unconscious, the subconscious to light, being responsible for that. Being responsible for your thoughts. Can you imagine being responsible for 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day? See, most people are completely on autopilot, and that's unawareness, that's unconsciousness. But yet they say, oh, I want to get to 5D, I want to get to 60 and higher. Well, if you want to get there, you have to be completely in control of all of your thoughts, because when you get to that level, you're communicating telepathically. And this chitter chatter, or distractions, disassociation, no, that can't be there. And who is responsible for your thoughts? It's you. When we align our thoughts, emotions, and our actions, boom, you're manifesting. You're manifesting once those three things are completely aligned. And the thoughts right now, your self-talk, your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you have. You've got to know yourself. You've got to be aware of your thoughts. And I will tell you, one of the things I do is in removing negative streams of energy and cords is like a curse spell removal, what you would call. And so many people say, well, who did this to me? Who put this on me? You put this on you, a lot of it. This is your negative self-talk, putting a negative field around you. And that's why you're attracting, lower frequency situations. And also that's a victimization state. Now, when I go into that, and if I see that there is a person actually directing negative energy towards someone, my answer is, this is a time to break that karmic cycle. This is a time to not be a victim by that. This is a time to say, you know what? If someone is directing negative energy at me, then they must be really miserable with themselves. And I have compassion for them, and I forgive them. And that's where this karmic cycle stops. And that's where the healing begins. So that, to me, that self-talk and that kind of mindset is almost like a shield of protection, because you're operating at such a high frequency. And when you're operating from that level of the true heart space, you're not going to have psychic attacks, because you're way above your frequency. You're flying above all of this lower frequency activity that's going on. So I really wanted this to be a helpful conversation for people to not feel scared, know that we're going through this band of consciousness. So you're not alone. You're not the only one experiencing this. I have so many people that come to me and they feel so frightened because they're scared to share what's going on in their life because they think they're the only one. No, this is happening on a mass scale. So again, the relationship with the self-talk, being responsible for yourself as much as possible to down to the level of your thoughts. This is where we really shift as a collective into the next level. And Ginny, I know we both have to go for appointments kind of soon, but what in kind of closing out, what would you say to people to help them the most during this time?
Well, two things. One would be become more self-aware. And I teach a self-awareness class, and there are, I think, 9 classes in the first module. And the first class is, where do our thoughts come from? And I teach people to monitor their thoughts and write down every negative thought they have. And then they start a process of confronting that thought or saying no. For example, my husband came in yesterday morning after feeding the horses and donkeys, and he said, boy, he said, I've really been struggling this morning. I woke up feeling such doubt and unworthiness and almost depression. And I just said, no, this is not me. I don't consent to this. This energy doesn't belong to me. And within a moment or two, it lifted off of me. And I said, good job, babe. Good job. Right? That's self-awareness. And when you become more self-aware and you start to manage your thoughts, you can get your thoughts down to hundreds of thoughts a day, or just tens of thoughts a day, or no negative thoughts a day at all. And that's where the magic really happens. And I've been watching my thoughts since 2017 and monitoring my thoughts. And I went from having more than 100 negative thoughts a day to down to less than 30, and then down to 6 or 7. And now if I have a negative thought, I stop what I'm doing and I address it right away. And the other thing I would say is grounding, but not just, I have people in my classes and I'll say, you're not grounded. Did you ground today? I just went outside and stood on the earth. Okay, that's not grounding. Are you consciously aware of your energy? And are you clearing the Earth Star chakra below your feet, saying hello to that energy every day, and clearing the energetic connection between your Earth Star chakra and the earth? Because the way we ground and the way we connect to the energetic body of the earth is different from walking on the earth. Yes, there's a discharge that takes place and electromagnetic coherence, what have you, that is happening when you stand on the earth, but that's not you taking control of your energy body and determining whether or not debris or distortion from the earth or humanity is affecting your energetic connection to the earth. And a lot of people who have anxiety, they're shaking, they're panicky, they have a headache, they're dizzy. All they have to do is clear their Earth Star chakra, and it shifts right away. Because until we are 100% sovereign, because any negative thought, any negativity, any trauma in the nervous system, that's all permission for something else to come in. So until we clear that, we need to know that at the very least, we're grounded and that connection is clear. And we have to do maintenance on that until we're totally sovereign. Once you're totally sovereign, that energy doesn't affect you from the Earth Star chakra, and other people cannot come in. But until that happens, you are writing permission slips for all manner of negative energy, whether it's thought forms, egregores, what have you, to come in and match the frequency within you, whatever trauma or unforgiveness. So I really recommend that people become more self-aware, learn to manage their own energy, scan their own energy field. And I teach classes like that. I have very low cost recordings on my website that people can buy. Module 1 is more self-awareness, psyche, soul retrieval, personality selves, interpersonal relationship type stuff. And module 2 is energetic self-awareness. And I think we should be teaching children this. I think you said that earlier. that if we were taught, if we were brought up in a culture that honored the energetic balance or imbalance of a person and taught us how to manage our own energy and how to ground effectively, not just by walking on the earth and saying, oh, I walked on the earth, you know, I do yoga and I walk in the forest. I'm the most awake person I know. That's not self-awareness. It's just not.
No, it's not. And with the grounding, for the galactic community, I think it's really important to understand that the mission, the goal is here on the ground. It's on Earth. It's not for you to be constantly astral projecting and fighting spiritual warfare up in, 4D. You have a body for a reason. You are most powerful when you embody as much of your soul and your spirit into your vessel as possible. That's the goal. It's not to be operating up here. It's in the body, on the ground. That's what we're doing here. And it's really important to understand that this it's not just spiritual warfare, it's psychotronic warfare. So people need, with this self-awareness, to be aware of the social media. There is so much programming, literally. Well, hi. um, Programming and conditioning, and the way this, false matrix was designed is to distract and to control and put us into a zombie-like state where we are just operating from the unconscious. And then that takes away our creative abilities. And we're so unique and we're so special as a humanity because we have the power to create. So, in closing, I do just want to make people aware, really try to cut down on the social media. And it's such a mob mentality, and especially with everything going on right now. And then we've even got the astrological, if you look at what we're going through astrologically with Mars and Uranus and that star algol. So these are really tumultuous times on multiple levels. It's a really, really good time to nest, to stay home, to stay in your own energy, because people are really triggered right now. And people are acting more aggressive because all of this, again, is coming to the surface. And it needs to come to the surface. We have to have this purging. But it's really important. It would be a great time to stay away from social media, stay away from large crowds, go within, be creative. This is actually a really good time to be creative. If you're an artist, if you're a musician, creating with the arts is the highest frequency. You're tapping directly into source when you do that. So if you have a passion for painting or playing an instrument or dancing, this is the time to really embrace that. And Ginny, can you tell people before we say goodbye where they can find you? What's the best website or place for them to find your services?
GinnyJablonski.com. Ginny, Ginny, Jablonski, Jablonski.com.
And I'm at earthbishop.com. I'll put links below so people can just click if they're interested. And so stay strong, stay grounded, and go within. And let's all try to operate from the beauty in the center of our hearts. Bye, everyone.